This show is brought to you by Databril, the scalable Amazon PPC management for large Amazon sellers and brands. Visit sellersessions.com/agency for more details. Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Again, we bring back Liran. How you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Excellent. So you're going to give us a bit of a rundown on your most recent China venture.
Yes.
But you've done this outside of Canton times. Like we normally are over there and say October and April, combining that with Hong Kong. But you've gone what I call out of season, if you like. So it was a dedicated visit. So what brought that about?
Yeah, so the first thing is I've been wanting to all year kind of make a trip and go visit my suppliers. I have two suppliers that I've had since since 2016 that I haven't visited or haven't met in person. And I've had a good sort of relationship with them, and I wanted to meet them in person. And so I decided to just look at my calendar for, a few months ago and just see when would be a good time to go. And ended up June would be a good time. So other than not realizing I was missing Father's Day and my daughter's graduation from 8th grade, it all worked out perfectly. So the dates just worked. And, I'm actually happy that I did it off season because I needed 10 days there. I probably wouldn't want to be away for 3 weeks, separately.
So it's a bit of a slap the journey, isn't it? Did you go, because I know you went to Australia. Did you go from Australia straight to China?
No, I was considering going after Retail Global, but it ends up that from Australia to China is almost the same as from the US to China.
Yeah.
As far as hours and stuff. So no, went back home, was home for a couple weeks, and then I flew straight, with Andy, New York to Shanghai. 15 hours direct flight, so not terrible.
Cool. And you've done first class, I take it.
I was in business, yeah. So definitely, if you can pay for business, it's totally worth it.
Yeah. Did you do that because you used cards and stuff? Did you build the points?
Yeah, I used points, and if I booked it from Delta, but it's through China Eastern, and so they're not as expensive as Cathay Pacific, and it's totally fine and good. I flew Cathay Pacific once before, but China Eastern was really good. I was able to my flight back. I think I slept 10 out of the 15 hours, and it makes a huge difference. So if you need the money for inventory, then obviously don't do
cattle class,
yeah. Then you want to sit in coach, which is fine, which I've done before too. But I would say if you have the extra funds to fly business, it's well worth it.
Sounds cool. Right, so give us a breakdown. You got over there, were you picked up by the airport by an Uber? What was the deal on the ground there?
Yeah, so we got into Shanghai, flew into Shanghai. So basically, I went with Andy. It was, and I felt better not going to China alone. Although after this trip, I think I would feel comfortable, if I needed to go there myself, as long as I have a translator. But flew with Andy. We landed in Shanghai on a Monday night. So we took a taxi to the hotel, and then Tuesday morning. Then we kind of split off and we each went to see our factories and suppliers and some new products. So the Tuesday morning I met a translator, and actually Steve Simonson hooked me up with his team there. So I was able to use somebody on his team to help me with the travel and translation and stuff, which was really, really helpful. Highly recommend you have a translator, even if your rep speaks pretty good English. There's some nuances to how exactly you want something that, I think it's well worth it. So met a translator and my supplier came pick me up. And it was about an hour and a half drive from Shanghai to the factory.
So your supplier is the factory. You're not using an intermediary production company or anything else like that, a trading company.
Yes. Yeah, in this case, yes. My other supplier is a trading company. So with them actually, I went to their offices, and then President Xi was actually in the area, and they had to close down factory, so we couldn't go to the factory. Now, that's what they told me, and then I went and I actually verified that was the case, because you never know. But I made it a point to tell them next time I'm in China, I definitely want to make sure we visit the factory.
See, the trading companies come into a bit of stick, but the thing is, the trading companies can work because if the factories simply do not want to deal with Westerners and learn the language, etc., the trading companies are super valuable in between because some people just see them as an extra cost, an extra layer. But
Right.
in a lot of cases, like one of my suppliers, she's brilliant. And she's a trading company. I'm not interested. I don't need to go and see the factory because I trust her. We have a great relationship. Worked with her for 3 or 4 years now, and never seem to have any problems. And could I get it cheaper? Maybe I could, but it means that you've got that extra dealings with the factory. They can't speak English, and it all becomes a lot more problematic.
Right. And sometimes in China, when you say, "Can you get it cheaper?" Yeah, maybe we get it for 30 or 40 cents cheaper, right? It's maybe material over the course of a year, but I agree. I think there's benefit to trading companies as far as like the service that you get, the oversight, the relationship, and if the pricing works, then I think it's okay. And also, I can work with them to source products that I couldn't just necessarily source from one factory. They're bringing in components from different factories. They're finding the best factory for this part, the best factory for this part. So I think there are advantages. It's the same thing as working with a sourcing agent, trading company. I think as long as your quality, price, service, communication is good and they work with you. Because, the biggest thing I find about China is at some point you'll have some kind of quality issue, and then it's how the supplier is willing to work with you to resolve and fix it. And they definitely work. We've had quality issues, but they worked with me.
Cool. So what are the main benefits you got out of this trip? So you got to meet them face to face. Have you been dealing with these factories or your suppliers for a long time?
Yeah.
Face to face or?
Yes, this was the first face to face with these suppliers. Been dealing with them for a couple of years. And I think there's definitely benefits to going to China and meeting your supplier. Now, if you've been selling a product for a month, I don't think it makes sense. But if you've been selling a product, you have a relationship with the factory for, 6-7 months, and you see an ongoing future relationship of ordering from them, I think it makes sense to go see them in person. So, some things that happened, for example, in the factory and the offices when I went there, they go to a back room and they start pulling out samples of stuff that other customers got samples of and didn't necessarily place orders for. Right. So they're showing me some ideas that weren't necessarily their ideas. They were like designs and stuff by other people, but they didn't end up ordering for whatever reason. And I had the opportunity to look at those potential like new products and decide if that's something I want to do. That would never come up over a Skype or WeChat conversation. Like, hey, let me go in the back room and pull out these like potential products. So you start having some conversations. At another point, I was literally sitting with the supplier on Amazon with them together, like doing research, like, hey, what's going to sell well from what you have to offer, whatever for Q4, right? That we could put orders in right now. We're kind of sitting there and they can see this and like, yeah, we can make that, no problem, whatever. And we're having that conversation there. I don't think you need to hide the fact that you saw on Amazon. Every supplier can go on Amazon, look up your brand name and find it, right? So I'm transparent with them. And in fact, I position myself as an Amazon expert to them so that they want to work with me. They want to give me terms. And they see me as an asset, for somebody that, sure, yeah, we'll give you terms because we know you can sell this stuff. So doing that kind of one-on-one, I don't think could happen, through, again, like Skype or something, especially, having the translator there was very, very helpful. And then, I don't think there's any replacement that you can get for having a meal and a beer or wine, with a customer. If you've been to China, I'm sure you've been through this plenty of times. When you go to the supplier, you're spending the entire day with them, like from like 9-10 in the morning until like 10-11 at night. You're eating lunch, you're eating dinner, you're going back to the factory, you're looking at samples. I mean, it's a really good experience that I don't think you can replace. Yeah,
exactly. The two experiences I had was with our current supplier, we met at Canton face to face, but they took us out for a meal in the evening. We travelled back from Hong Kong because we zigzagged between the different stages of Canton Fair. And we went out for a nice meal and stuff. One of the things you can't underestimate about China is, one, the sheer size. Two, barely anyone speaks English. The problems that we had, like first day of Canton, I'll make you laugh quickly. We spent 3 hours trying to wave down a taxi. We walked for miles on the first day of Canton, got there about 11:30 to 12. it was an absolute joke. But the only way we could communicate with the cab drivers was because we had WeChat. I contacted our Airbnb host. He cut and pasted, or he wrote the message, sent it to us, and we had to show the cab driver because they simply couldn't understand a word of English. And the other thing is the food. It's like trying to book somewhere where you can eat because you can't get on the phone and make that booking. So
Right.
you are heavily relied upon from your supplier,
Right.
to make all these moves and make you feel comfortable, you know?
Yeah. And, one of the things I got in the middle of the trip was I got an app where you could talk into it and then it would
Translate.
It would translate and talk back and write back. And that was really, really helpful. Like, I mean, even small little things, we get in cabs and it is really hot right now, in China. And we get in the cabs and all of them have like the windows down. It's like boiling, And like, I was just talking to the app, like, hey, can you put on the air conditioning, And then I was like, the cab drivers have this like, sort of like plastic enclosing around them, right? And I'm like putting this up to like, with my phone up to their like plastic enclosing, like, and it talks and suddenly they turn on the air conditioning. My app is worth every dollar for that app is well worth it.
What is the app, just for people in the audience? Do you remember what it's called?
Yeah, so I think it's called iTranslate Pro. I'm going to look it up right now. iTranslate. What I did was it has a 7-day free trial. After that, I think it's $4.99 a month. So I just did a free trial while I was there, and then I canceled it. When I go back, I'll probably sign up for a month or whatever.
Yeah, that is going to be absolutely invaluable to have.
Yes, really. I mean, it's really, 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 really helpful. I found it helpful in the hotel or whatever, like just anywhere was really helpful. And again, having a translator with you, I think is like a must because it just makes it so much easier to like.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, translator with you, definitely for stuff like that. Canton Fair, not so much if, and only if, you stay in an English-speaking hotel, don't be off the grid, you can get around. But in cases like what you've said, you're in complete isolation, you don't know where you are, you're in the middle of Shanghai, and you're driving miles to go to the backwater to these factories and stuff. You need every bit of help you can get.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I went to Canton in 2016 and I didn't take a translator and, I thought it was fine. But like just for the initial communication that you do with the factory, to have an English speaking rep or a translator, or they'll have a translator. I think it's okay.
Yeah. Or when you get to the factory, as long as the guy that the woman you're speaking to has got pretty good English and understands you, they can normally articulate. So let's talk about the negotiations, because there's a good point there. It's the same thing for us. We had a guy that spoke pretty good English. It's funny how they give themselves names. I think this guy was called James Brown, and he was a mad football fan. So he named himself after a singer.
That's
and
funny.
he was talking to me all the time about football. So that he brought his boss in, and we would negotiate through him. But it's a similar thing is that you just said is that you take a translator. So talk to me about some of the things that you were negotiating for.
Yeah, so one of my factories gives me like amazing terms. So I didn't need to negotiate that, but now that I have some amazing terms with one factory, I want to try to get some better terms with my other factory. So like my one factory will, I'll pay 30% down, and then I'll pay the rest like 90 days after the goods arrive at port. I mean, I have like great relationship with them. My other factory, I pay 30% upfront, and I pay the 70% when the goods arrive at the port in the U.S. before they release the documents. So they don't really have risk because if they don't release the documents, the freight forwarder can't pick them up for me. So I make that payment before. But one of the things that I kind of pitched to them was Q4 is coming up. I could do like 5 new products right now for Q4, or we could do like 10 to 15 new products together and kind of crush it, right? But if we're going to do that, I need your help because, the it's going to take more capital, obviously, up front and, and when they arrive at port before Q4, before I start getting that money in. And so I made this kind of pitch to them and they said, okay, give us see what products you want to do and then send us an email with like a proposal and summary. So I'm actually like working on that with them now. And I'm not going to propose something crazy off the bat because I want to try to get something. So, maybe I'll propose, 30% deposit, another 30% when it gets to port. So they'll have 60 and then the other 40, maybe 30 days after. Something that's not totally like off the wall from what I have now. And then I could kind of move it forward. I don't know that that would be possible if I hadn't met them in person, and that they kind of see, yeah, I'm a real person. I'm not going away. Like, here's my Amazon store. Like, here are the new products I want to do. I sat down with the owner of the factory. I'd met the owner of the factory once in LA earlier this year. He came to LA, but I didn't meet my rep. And so this was the second time meeting the owner. He actually opened a U.S. bank account earlier this year, and I helped him like do a wire transfer on his computer, from his U.S. bank account, right? Yeah. So just kind of like, while he was playing guitar behind me. I had this video clip. So like we just had a good time at the factory. We went out to eat for lunch. We went out to eat for dinner. Then the place turned into some crazy karaoke place. And like just that relationship and all. Asking for those terms is much easier when you have that relationship, and then saying no. I think
it's getting a bond, isn't it? It's building a bond. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And then I think for them saying no is much easier over the computer to somebody they've never met before. Like, hey, we don't do this, as opposed to like, come on, like, me, you could trust that I'm, make the payments and that I know how to sell on Amazon. So those are some of the takeaways for me, like the face to face. It's really important. And then I would also say, as far as going to new factories, Andy Slamans, my partner with the Amazing Freedom Group, he went to see some new products, and he had spoken to some suppliers ahead of time on Alibaba, and they were going to prepare the sample, and he was going to go see the sample there. And when he went to the factory, one factory, the sample was fine, but the factory was a total disaster, right? Like total mess. Not in great like condition, etc. And price was a little bit cheaper, and then the other factory was really good. And he said, if he was just looking at pricing and the samples that they would have shipped him, he could have possibly ordered from that one factory that was a nightmare. But chances are the sample would have been much better than the mass production. And so, I think the takeaway there is that if you're kind of a serious seller and you're going to put in an order with the new factory, then doing a like pre-production factory audit, I think makes a lot of sense. It's probably going to cost you, $100 to $300, and it could save you a lot of headache down the road. You can get pictures. You can find out what the, employee working conditions are, making sure, I haven't seen any child labor myself in factories, but making sure they don't do things like that or just overwork the employees or like the conditions are okay. To me, that would a clean, like decent looking factory is probably more likely to be organized and produce a quality product than like what looks like a mess. And so that's kind of another takeaway for me if I'm going to be using any sort of new supplier, and I'm not going through like a sourcing agent who's going to the factory for me or anything, then I'm going to do a pre-inspection audit ahead of time, in China.
Makes sense. Like, what you're just saying there about negotiating some of these terms, just bringing it back onto that point, is that I know people, a friend of mine actually does a lot. He's 8-figure seller, and he has his own Amazon businesses, but he also works with other like with factories. So he has deals in place where he's built up for his own business, and he built great terms in the very beginning. And then he started to team up and work with the factory. So it's another way of growing the business where they provide the product and then you agree a set of terms, whether that's a determination on a split, and then there's no upfront cash flow and you're paying for the marketing, etc., to launch all these different products. There's lots of ways of working with the factories once you've built those relationships. And those relationships come by being in China, and by seeing it's like anything. People like to do business with people that they like and that they can trust,
Right.
And I think it does pay dividends to go and see your factory where possible, if affordable, to do so.
Yep. And, if you do want to spend some time, in China, maybe a little bit of a longer period of time, then going like in April or October does make sense, because you could do it in one trip.
That's when you do, like normally when you're working between the phases, you go phase one, then you go into go back to Hong Kong because you're going to hit some of the trade shows there, and then go to phase two. Depends on what dates they fall in, which part of the year, whether it's April or October, would depend on where you would visit Hong Kong. So some people go for the full 3 phases. That doesn't interest me personally, but I know people that do. So what they'll do is in between one phase, they'll go to Hong Kong, and then the other phase, the the shutdown for the 5 days, they'll go and visit factories.
Right.
You know,
so yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. You could do it all in one trip, and source new products and go see factories. I think you can also find suppliers on Alibaba and then go meet them after. But I think having that face-to-face relationship at some point makes sense. It's not the first money I would spend if I'm just starting out with private label. Yeah. But if I have some established products, or if I'm already planning on going to the Canton Fair, then I would make sure I have some time there to, even if I don't have suppliers, maybe to visit those factories, like you said, in between the phases, the ones that I'm considering maybe putting some orders in with.
Totally. And I'm imagining you're going to be back out there in October. You'll be speaking at a few events over there now. Spreading your wings to Asia outside the US.
Yes. I'll be speaking. Andy and I will both have a couple different sessions there at Global Sources Summit. In Hong Kong. So I've never been to the Global Sources Summit or any other shows. So I'm looking forward to that. I think what I've heard from you in the past is maybe the quality maybe could be a little bit better in Hong Kong.
In terms of the products?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does vary. I've been to different events. Like there's actually a part of Hong Kong where the products are super high quality. It's Canton Fair that tends to have the lower quality if we switch it around. And what I mean by that, I remember going to one of the shows in 2016, and they literally had what we called the China floor, and then they had Japan, and they had different countries, and you could see the gulf in quality, because you see rows and rows of stuff that look the same, and it's all of the same quality. But then you go into another area, and you might see there is products from Pakistan, and it's really super, super high quality. And that's where you start to see the difference. Whereas at Canton Fair, it's very difficult because you might, especially in home and kitchen, you might have 50 stands all selling the same stuff of the same quality. It's very hard to tell the difference. So in some cases, what I would say about Hong Kong, there is a higher quality in some areas of the products, especially in the home and kitchen area of things, but you will pay a bit more of a premium there. So it does. I would say go and visit, get the cards and stuff, and then negotiate when you get back, because I think the cost of stands in Hong Kong are probably a lot higher than they are in Canton. But obviously that's going to vary from category to category and product to product.
Right, got it. And are you going to be in China in October?
Nope, I'll be away with it. I'm taking October off. I'm going to be going to Disney World to take my daughter, but I'll be back over in April, either China, Hong Kong, or both. So I'm sure I'll be over speaking there.
Awesome.
And so were you at Boost?
I was at Boost. Yep. So I flew from China, landed in New York at 2:30 in the afternoon, and at 7 at night I was off to Boost.
You're brutal. That jet lag must have killed you. Talk to me about Bruce. We had Chris McCabe on, because I think it's when I spoke to you before. All the feedbacks I've had from Boost is content-wise is a bit dry because it's done in-house and no one can really push the boundaries. But the best part of Boost, from my understanding, is meeting all the other sellers. Yes,
and meeting Amazon employees. So I mean, as far as content, if you're a beginner, you might learn something. If you're, a little bit of a more established seller, then, Amazon's not going to tell you how to get more reviews or how to, how to rank in the algorithm, right? So I don't think the content's ever going to be as good as what you see among sellers who share content.
Yes.
For me, the content's just a placeholder to have an event, and the benefit really is networking with other sellers and Amazon employees, because Amazon did have probably 15 or 20 different little booths from different departments of Amazon, and the people they had there were actually, they're not low level employees. They're some of the more middle level to senior level managers in those areas. So you can actually have a conversation with somebody about a problem, or about, I have a friend who's been trying to get approval on hazmat, went to the booth. The guy was like, all right, send me an email. I can get you approved.
That's what I was going to say to you. Do they give some, not in all cases, but do they give you out their business cards? One.
Some.
Mm-hmm. Some. And do they actually respond to the bloody emails?
Yeah, so I think yes. So I think you have that opportunity, and if you really have a problem in one area, so I recently removed some inventory from Amazon, and my IPI number didn't change at all, and I thought it should have. And I'm not sure if this is a direct result or not, but I sent an email, I didn't get a response back, and my number shot up.
Yeah.
After I don't know if it's something Amazon did or not. But I did go there. I spoke to them, and I was like, "Look, and I think you have to push a little bit. They're like, okay, well, you can go to this and this. You can go to this and this place and open a ticket or whatever." I'm like, no, like, is there an email I can get to like talk to somebody? And you push the envelope a little bit, and they gave me an email. So I think some people do have cards. Others like, oh, I ran out of cards. And like, I'll take a picture of it, or like I'll write it down. Like don't give them the way out, because they don't want to be bombarded with 1,000 emails when they get back to their office. But if they think it's a one-off kind of situation, then they might be willing to give it to you. So push the envelope a little bit with them, and I think you can get some things done there. So it's not just a seller sort of opportunity. I think it's also the Amazon networking opportunity. Yeah.
And did you have a chance to go out and have a beer with some of the Amazon people, or was it like you're the seller and we're Amazon? Was there, were you in the bar 2:00 in the morning? Hitting shots.
So there was an opportunity for that. So the first night, which I got there too late, they did have like a party type thing, which is like alcohol and appetizers and food and stuff like that. So you definitely can do that. And then they actually had a prepared like bar crawl also that you can go on, that they put in the bags. Now I ended up being out with other people at 2 a.m. drinking shots, but throwing beads off on Bourbon Street. But you absolutely do have that opportunity. And again, I think as you develop a relationship with Amazon, maybe there's an employee that you kind of develop a relationship with and talk to them, whatever, and you see them the following year, and you go out with them and a bunch of Amazon people like that.
It's like any relationship you build. Yes. Isn't it? At the end of the day, they are human, but they're behind the iron curtain, and we sit on the other side, don't we? So.
Yeah, I mean, I was, I was texting with my rep yesterday, and she's like, "Are you ready for Prime Day?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Are you ready?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm waiting for, I'm waiting when it's time to start like crying or whatever, right?" Because like the employees are under so much pressure, and like she's young and sometimes takes things very seriously, and like the pressure kind of hits you, and like these are like the kind of conversations you can have with they're like you said, they're real people who are under real pressure. Amazon's not I think an easy place to work at. There's goals and pressure, probably things we don't think about, but you can build those kind of relationships where you can have those conversations with them. And then when you need a favor, when I had been acing down on a Sunday, within an hour, she got it back up for me.
Sounds great. Well, look, let's wrap that there. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
No, we're, a lot of people are letting me know they've heard me on your show, so they love your show. We have a podcast you can check out also, the Amazon Seller Podcast, and we put out weekly content there too.
Sounds good. Great. Guys, thank you for joining us. Liran, thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to check out sellersessions.com for in-depth show notes. We've got over 100 shows there. So we started to build up a big backstory of all your Amazon needs. So go check it out, sellersessions.com, and we'll see you again in a few days. Take care.